The different rulers of Mali were referred to as Mansas. That was the title. Mansa was like saying king or emperor. The most widely known Mansa was an emperor by the name of Mansa Musa. Now, he's known by the Europeans. He's known by the Arab world. Mansa Musa started his life as a son of a king. And at his birth, he was not a practicing Muslim, but at some point he converted to Islam. And in keeping with the tradition of all good Muslims, he made a Hajj, or a journey to Mecca. Now, he was so rich. You may say, how rich was he? Well, he was so rich that his entourage included 60,000 people, over 1,000 camels, and they were all loaded with gold. He had so much gold, he didn't know what to do with it. He handed it out in every town he went to. When he arrived at Egypt, he handed out so much gold in Egypt that it totally crashed their economy, and it took Egypt 12 years after Mansa Musa visited there to recover, because he just put so much money into the economy that it inflated the value of everything because there was so much gold. You got a piece of bread, 12,000 pounds of gold. You got some chicken, 10,000 pounds of gold. I mean, I'm just exaggerating, but there was so much gold there. As I said, salt was more valuable at times than gold. But he was a generous man. He expanded, and I say he, meaning Mansa Musa, the most celebrated emperor or king of the Empire of Mali. He doubled the size of the Mali Empire during the time that he reigned. Now, Mali is known for a few other things. It's known for two famous cities. Gao was the administrative center of Mali. It was the place where all of the government was set up, and the different divisions of the empire were coordinated through the city of Gao. Gao is spelled G-A-O. And Gao was actually discovered fairly recently in terms of history, and the walls of Gao are still in existence today. And they weren't wooden walls, they were actually mud brick walls. It was a well laid out, planned city. If you have the time and the money, you might want to take that trip. It would be quite the trip, but Gao still exists. The other center, or the other city that was significant in the Mali Empire was Timbuktu. Now, I'm sure you may have heard this name before, and Timbuktu is a byword for some place in the middle of nowhere, but actually Timbuktu actually existed. Whereas Gao was the administrative center for the Empire of Mali, Timbuktu was the religious and the intellectual center for the Empire of Mali. The first university that was built on the continent of Africa was built in Timbuktu. The library in Timbuktu was reported to have between 250,000 and 800,000 books. And that's important because when we think about Africa, again, the images that we've received throughout time regarding how Africans have been portrayed by Europeans as backward, unlearned, savages. But no, actually, they had a university in the middle of the desert. We're talking about between 1230 AD and 1460 or 1470 AD. They had a library with 800,000 books, if not the largest mosque at the time that were built in Africa, were built in Timbuktu. What Mansa Musa did is he built administrative buildings, he built religious buildings, he built buildings that just had different architectural designs. He brought in the best and the brightest minds from all around the Islamic world. They met. It was a place of learning. It was a cultural hub. And I'm sure if you've heard about it, you thought it was some distant, remote place. Most people think that it was some made-up place, but it actually existed. And it existed because of the dreams and the vision that Mansa Musa had. Now, of course, he wasn't the only Mansa, but he is the most celebrated Mansa. In fact, there was a map that was done by the Europeans, particularly, I think it was a Spanish map drawer, and it actually shows Mansa Musa sitting in some place holding a nugget of gold, and that was symbolic of how wealthy he was and how wealthy his empire was. Now, some people say that Mansa Musa's wealth, if we measured it in today's dollars and cents, would be roughly, his net worth would be roughly $400 billion. Can you imagine that? The wealthiest man on planet Earth during that time was not someone in Asia, not someone in Europe, and they had a lot of wealth that they stole from Africa and Asia and other places in Europe. But the wealthiest man on planet Earth was right there in Mali, and he was worth $400 billion.